Welcome, everybody. Welcome. Shabbat Shalom. It's good to see everybody. And if you want to say hello and wave to anybody who's here, make sure to put yourself on to gallery mode, and that'll allow you to see all of those who are coming on and wishing them a Shabbat Shalom. And so we're going to continue now and move into the beginning of our service. And in the chat, you're going to see pasted the link to the prayer book. We're going to begin on page 10 with the singing of Hine Matov. Hine Matov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. 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 Matov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. So I'm already seeing people putting into the chat Shabbat Shalom. Make sure, if everybody wants, write Shabbat Shalom, maybe a prayer for the people who are around you. And don't be afraid, by the way, to privately chat to somebody. There's something about getting that private right next to the name of the person who sent it to you that make you feel really good, like you're not just a face in the crowd. And so feel free, privately chat to some of the people around you and wish them Shabbat Shalom in addition to wishing everyone a Shabbat Shalom. We're on page 11, Dodili. Dodili Bani lo haroeh bashoshanim. Dodili Bani lo haroeh bashoshanim. I am my beloved and my beloved is mine, which has come to symbolize the love that we feel from God all around us on Shabbat, and also the love that we feel for our community. So feel free, show our community love as you chat to each of them. Mizot olam min hamidbar, mizot olam min hamidbar. And so I'm beginning to see that people are actually chatting Shabbat Shalom to one another, but also Mazel Tov to Lev and Shana. So as many of you know, Lev and Shana Rudorin are going to become B'nai Mitzvah tomorrow morning and called up to the Torah for the very first time. And so it's my pleasure to call them up to the screen as tonight they light our candles and lead us in Kiddush. We're on page number 2 and 3.
Ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kishanu mitzvotav v'tzivanu v'hadlik ner shel Shabbat.
So having now seen our candles lit, we're going to move now to page number 5 as they lead us together in Kiddush. In our prayer over the wine.
I got it. Ready? Yep. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kishanu mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho v'havav ratzon hinilanu zikaron l'maaseh bereshit ki hu yom tehillah l'mikrei kodesh zecher l'tziat mitzrayim ki banu ha'arta v'tanu kidashta mikol ha'amim v'shabbat kodshecha v'ahava u'ratzon Hirchatanu Baruch atah Adonai Mikadesh HaShabbat.
Amen. Yasher Koach, Mazel Tov. Can't wait for tomorrow. And so feel free in the chat. People can chat messages to them. Congratulations, words of luck. As together we move to page number 20. And once again, I'll put into the chat the prayer book that should go right to the page that you need. We're on page number 20. Lecha dodi likrat kala yananai 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 b'nei Shabbat kapela yaida yaida lecha dodi likrat kala yananai 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 b'nei Shabbat kapela shamur v'zachor v'dibor echad hishmianu Elam Yuchad Adonai Echad Ushmo Echad V'shulmu Tiferet V'liv Chila Lechad Dodi Likrat Kala Yananai 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 B'nei Shabbat Kapela Yaida Yaida Lechad Dodi Likrat Kala Yananai 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 B'nei Shabbat Kapela Likrat Shabbat Lechuven Elcha Ki hi mekor habiracha Mirosh Mikedem Nesucha Sof Ma'aseh Lemakshava Tchila Lechad Dodi Likrat Kala Yananai 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 B'nei Shabbat Kapela Yaida Yaida Lechad Dodi Likrat Kala Yananai 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 B'nei Shabbat Kapela. Verse number 5. Hitoreri Kiva Oreku Mi Uri Shir Daberi Kevod Adonai Alayik Nigla Lechad Dodi Likrat Kala Yananai 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 B'nei Shabbat Kapela Yaida Yaida Lechad Dodi Likrat Kala Yananai 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 B'nei Shabbat Kapela. If you're able, I'll invite you to rise. Verse number 9. Bo'i v'shalom ateret ba'ala gam b'simcha u'v'sola Emunei am segula boi kala lehadodi likrat kala yananai 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 ene Shabbat kala yaida yaida lehadodi likrat kala yananai 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 ene Shabbat mekabela which you can find together on page number 26.
Yitkadav Shemei Rabbah V'yamad Yivrach Yirutei V'yamlich Malchutei V'chayechonu V'yamechonu V'chayedecho Beit Yisrael V'hagala Uvizman Kariv V'yemeru Amen. Yesh Merabah Mevarach Le'olam u'lamei Amaya Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalel shemei dekudashah Rechu Le'elam min kol berchata v'shirata Tushbechata v'nechemata Damiran bi'alama V'emeru Amen.
Together on page 28.
Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamavorach.
Baruch Adonai Hamavorach Le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamavorach Le'olam va'ed.
Seated together, a special prayer for evening and nature on page 30 and 31.
This is an hour of change. Within it we stand uncertain on the border of light. Shall we draw back or cross over? Where shall our hearts turn? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? This is the hour of change, and within it we stand quietly on the border of light. What lies before us? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? Baruch atah Adonai Ha'ma'ariv Aravim.
We're on page 32. Avat olam Beit Yisrael Amchata Torah u'mitzvot Gimu mishpatim Otanu lemadeta Alkein Adonai Eloheinu V'shovenu v'kumeinu Nasiach berukecha V'nizmach v'divrei Toratcha U'v'mitzvotecha Le'olam va'ed Yihem chayenu V'yorech yameinu V'yorech yameinu U'vahem negev Yomam v'layla Yomam v'layla V'yavatecha tasim imenu le'olamim Baruch atah Adonai Ohev amo Yisrael.
Shema Yisrael Adonai
Page 36.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני Adonai Elohechem, Adonai Elohechem, Emet.
So as we've been doing each and every Shabbat, I want to set up a question with a quote. And I've been doing a lot of reading of one of my favorite modern thinkers, Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sacks, who passed away only a week or so ago. And he, by the way, if you want to read, I think one of the smartest modern thinkers on Judaism and society today, read him, and especially his new book on morality that just came out. But I want to share this quote with you and then elicit a question from it. This is from him. Never compromise your ideals. Never give in to defeat or despair. Never stop journeying merely because the way is long and hard. It always is. Indeed, our ancestors never gave up when they were in Egypt. They never gave up as they were crossing the sea, and they never gave up as they were journeying through the desert. And so we remember and we mark them every single Shabbat as we sing the Michamocha, which is on page number 40. But my question for you tonight is this, as we do this, as we sing. He mentioned never giving up on your ideals. So the question that I hope that you'll put into the chat and share with everybody is this question. What is one ideal that you hold that you hope to never give up on? We're on page number 40 as we join together with the singing of Michamocha. Moshe Miriam, Ze'elianu ve'amru, Ze'elianu ve'amru, Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed, Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed. Even though we can't hear everybody, I want to see your mouths moving. Nine, nine, and nine, and na 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 nine, nine, and nine, and nine, and na na nine, nine, and nine, and nine, and na 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 nine, nine, and nine, 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 nine. And thus it is said, Adonai redeemed Jacob from a hand stronger than his own. Praised are you, Adonai, for redeeming Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, Ga'al Yisrael. And so we see that people are already putting into the chat the different pieces the ideals that they hope, and we have a lot of people who have put in, which is wonderful, ideals that they never wish to give up on. Things like fairness, truth, love, kindness, life, equity, honesty, compassion, equality, hope, democracy, being nice, having faith in the decency of fellow human beings, your Judaism, freedom of choice, finding joy, treating others with respect, democracy, relationships with family, inequality, and aspiring to make the world a better place. And hopefully, prayer only helps to make those things stronger. It only thickens your resolve and makes it so that you seek out not a way just to keep those ideals, but to grow them. We're on page 42. Hashkivenu, I'm sorry. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu Lishalom, Ve'amidenu Shomrei, Ulechaim. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu Lishalom, Ve'amidenu Shomrei, Ulechaim. Ushmor Seitenu, we're in the middle of that page. Uvoenu, Lechaim Ushalom, Me'ata V'ad Olam. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu Lishalom, Ve'amidenu Shomrei, Ulechaim. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu Lishalom, Ve'amidenu Shomrei, Ulechaim. I'll invite us now to rise as we turn to our Amidah prayer, page 46. And after this opening meditation, asking God to open our mouths, we move in silence through page number 60.
In my eyes to my hands to be, open my eyes to good words, to pure words, open my heart to love, open my eyes to truth, open my hand to give freely, open my lips to words, to pure words, open my heart to love. Adonai Sefat Tiftach, Ufi Tehivatecha. My lips to good words, to pure words, open my.
We continue in silence. We're on page number 62. O se shalom bimroma uya se shalom aleinu ve'al kol Israel ve'imeru amen. Oh, say shalom bimroma uya say shalom aleinu ve'al kol Israel ve'imeru amen. You can dance a little in your seats. I want to see everybody bop a little bit if you want. Oh, say shalom bimroma uya say shalom aleinu ve'al kol Israel ve'imeru amen. Oh, say shalom bimroma uya say shalom aleinu ve'al kol Israel ve'imeru amen. And so now that we've prayed for peace, we also pray for healing of those that we love. And so in a moment, I'll invite us to turn to page 271, where you can find the words in the Misha Berach, and as 253, I'm sorry. And as we do this, I'll invite you to paste names into the chat of people for whom you are thinking, people who are very much in your hearts and your minds right now. You'll see that we'll be scrolling names. And as we do each week, we've got a member of our congregation who is going to be doing the singing. And this week we have one of our religious school students, Alana Bass, and we're privileged to have her lead us in this prayer. So as names fill up into the chat, we'll share our screen now and pray our prayer for healing.
Misha Berach Avotzinu Makor HaBracha Le'imotzeinu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Misha Berach Imotzeinu Makor HaBracha Lavotzeinu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
Thank you, Alana. And feel free, by the way, she's on this service to post any notes that you want to her for her beautiful leading of that prayer. So tomorrow morning, we're going to read the story of Jacob and Esau. And I'm really excited because of the takes that Lev and Shana have, but I'll leave that for them for later. But I actually want to speak not about this week's portion, not about next week's portion, but actually about the portion after that. Because the seeds of Jacob and Esau's reunion are actually planted in this week's portion. Now, if you don't know what happened, a quick summary. You have two people who just got married last portion, Isaac and Rebekah, and they have trouble having children, but they eventually get blessed with twins. And these twins don't even get along in the womb. They're wrestling and they're fighting, so much so that Rebekah actually prays to God, wondering what's wrong, because pregnancies aren't supposed to be like the way that she has observed them. And so eventually these children are born, and they couldn't be more different. Jacob's a homebody, staying in his tent, studying, and being a mama's boy. Now, Esau is more aligned with his father. Esau is a hunter. He brings his father food. He's rough and tumble in a way that the gentle, or Tom in Hebrew, the innocent, Jacob is not. Now, over the course of time, these two brothers end up getting into conflict. The first thing, which, by the way, Lev will talk about tomorrow, is that one day Esau is out hunting. He comes back, and Jacob tricks him into selling his birthright, the kind of firstborn status that he is, for a little bit of stew. Then later, when it's time for Esau to be blessed by his father Jacob as the firstborn, he's out hunting to make his father game and food, and Jacob dresses up as Esau and pretends to be his brother so that his father gives him the blessing instead of Jacob. Something, by the way, which Shana is going to talk about tomorrow. So you can only imagine just how much animosity Esau feels for Jacob, and conversely, Jacob feels for Esau. So much, by the way, that Jacob actually has to flee for his life. And at the end of this portion and the beginning of the next portion, Jacob is running away, because he knows how angry his brother is, not only for his past misdeeds of having stolen the birthright, but this latest misdeed of having tricked his father into giving him the rightful blessing due to his brother. Now, he lives away from his brother for 20 years. And in the meantime, he meets his wife Rachel and his wife Leah. He meets their maidservants, Bilhah and Zilpah, and he has this crew of children. 12 sons and a daughter, Dinah. And he ends up eventually 20 years later, leaving his home and on the road, getting word that his brother is close. And so he separates his camp, afraid that his brother might attack. And so if they were separate, perhaps he would only attack one piece of his camp. And he's nervous. He doesn't know what's going to happen. The reunion is fraught, and he is shaking in fear. And so eventually the day of the reunion comes. And this, by the way, is 2 weeks from now, we read about this reunion. And in that moment, we find that all that animosity is stripped away. No sooner does Jacob and Esau see one another than Esau hugs Jacob and cries on Jacob, and the two of them embrace full-hearted. But then something happens. Esau says to Jacob, "Come be my brother again. Come with me, and we together will start a united family." And Jacob pauses for a second and says to Esau, I would love to, but why don't you start on ahead? There's lots for me to do here, and I'll catch up with you. So Esau does that, and Jacob, having no desire to ever catch up with Esau, goes his separate way. Now that's the story. And at the end of the day, Esau and Jacob don't really reconcile. It's not powerful in the way that that moment was. And my contention is that that moment was incredibly important, the moment when they first embraced, because it stripped away the facade and it helped them remember why they cared about one another in the first place. Now, I want to fast forward 3,000 years, and I want to talk about a moment that feels very similar to that, because Yossi Klein Halevi has this really kind of powerful scene that he talks about in his book, like dreamers, which is the story of this group of Israeli paratroopers who are the first ones into Jerusalem when they win the city back during the 6-day war. And he traces these paratroopers of like probably 4 or 5 characters throughout their life to show, one becomes a peacenik and one becomes a settler, and kind of the different faces of Israel. But at the end of the 6-day war, there was something that I had never heard before I read that book. And I think that it actually has something to say about the Jacob and Esau saga. Because you have to imagine that it's the end of the war. The war only lasts for about 6 days, right? And you've got the Israelis on one side of a line and the Egyptians on the other. And the Israelis had been so successful in their raid against Egypt that they were like well into Egypt by then. And the word starts spreading that the war is finished. And Yossi Klein Halevi writes about this, and it's incredible. They put their weapons down, and they are so excited, they jump up basically from the pits that they're squatting in and from behind the buildings that they're hiding behind. And they start embracing their own. But then something happens, and they end up crossing the neutral zone that was between the two of them, and they start embracing each other. They forget that they were at war in the first place. Until finally their commander starts screaming at them, "What are you doing? This is the enemy." And immediately they go back and they say, "Oh, what am I doing? You're totally right." And they rush back to their sides and hold up their arms again until they're able to kind of retreat very slowly away. But for a brief moment, they had the Jacob and Esau moment. For a brief moment, they embraced. They forgot about the outside world. Now, I bring this up because there's a lot of people that every single one of us have animosity with. It might be that we don't agree with them politically. It might be because they hurt us somehow in the past in the same way that Jacob and Esau felt hurt by the other person. It might be because you see them as the enemy, or it might be because you've got such a facade on you of cynicism and anger that you can't let anyone else in. But there are people for whom it is very hard for you to ever let in. But there will be moments where the facade fades away. There will be moments where the shell falls off. There will be moments where you accidentally find yourself over the neutral zone, hugging them, or in a reunion, crying on their shoulder. And the key is to not do what Jacob then does, and not do what the Israeli soldiers then do, which is immediately put back on the uniform, right? Put back on the skin of thickness, the skin of cynicism, the skin of anger, to remember those past misdeeds. Immediately upon seeing Esau again, Jacob goes back to the person he used to be. Instead of saying, "I'm going to move forward and I'm going to bottle up that feeling of us embracing," he says, "Yeah, we had this. But at the end of the day, I'm still angry about that stuff in the past, and I'm still mad I had to run away, and I still don't really like you." And so instead of tapping in to what I think the truest emotion was, which was their reunion, he taps into the baggage that's keeping him behind. The key with all of those people is to figure out, is there a moment where you can strip that baggage away? Is there a moment where you can take off that mask? Is there a moment where you can shed the facade? And when you're able to do that, you're able to better channel the feeling that I know every single one of us has with loved ones that we wish we could be close to imagine what that embrace and that cry would be, to imagine what crossing the neutral zone would look like. And if you don't put that facade back on, if you don't put on your armor again, what would it mean to then join hands and to leave together? Our past brings us into our present, but it need not define us. If we live in the past, what we end up doing is losing a chance at our future. So the goal is to, if you do find yourself in a place of raw openness, to not lose that, by going too far back into the past. Whatever you're doing for Thanksgiving, I imagine there are going to be people, whether in your backyard, hopefully socially distanced, or over Zoom, that you might feel like you have that armor up with. Find a reason to let it down. Channel that. And I hope, if you can, that you can join hands and walk away together. Shabbat Shalom. And so I'm going to invite us now to rise, and we're going to turn to page 282 for Elena.
Aleinu l'shabeach ladon hakol, latet gedula leotzer breshit, shelo asanu kigoye haratzot, velo samanu kamishpachot adama, shelo sam chelkeinu kahem, vegor aleinu kechol hamonam, vanachnu karim, Umishtakhavim umodim lifnei melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu.
Page 287, may we gain wisdom in our lives, overflowing like a river with understanding. Loved each of us for the peace we bring to others. May our deeds exceed our speech, and may we never lift up our hand but to conquer fear and doubt and despair. Rise up like the sun, O God, over all humanity. Cause light to go forth over all the lands between the seas, and light up the universe with the joy of wholeness, of freedom, and of peace.
V'nemar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad.
We turn together to page 294. We think of the following individuals for whom we are observing yard sites for this week: Judy Adler, Rose Alexander, Solomon Beck, Hyman Beckerman, Harold Berlin, Arnold Milton Bloom, Lillian Buckbinder, Regina Cohen, Jeffrey Duboff, Mildred Cohn Frank, Sylvia Geller, Sarah Sue Glick, Rosalind Hout Gore, Fanny Goldsticker, Tilly Willig, Bertha Gordon, Rose Gould, Mary Gruber, Rachel Harris, Ruth Hendler, Oscar Hiffman, Matilda Horowitz, Lenora Jans, Carl Johnson, Cade Johnson, Hannah Johnson, Thomas Camp, Austin Camp, Nathan Camp, Morris Katz, Isidore Klein, Jerome Kramer, David Leff, Isidore Benjamin Levin, Dora Liebling, Bernard Macy, Isidore Meinhardt, Vernon Menkes, Sophie Menkes, Nathan Newman, Dorothy November, Abraham Aaron Reback, Linda Rooney Markstein, Meyer Rosansky, Sydney Savitt, Constance Shavitz, Sheridan Schechner, Elsa Schmeier, Marilyn Schwartz, Alex Schaefer, Gladys Schuker, Salim Soffer, Joseph Stromfeld, Belle Sweetwood, Sydney Waldman, Helen Teresa Wolkoff, and Leroy Zieger. And those who are in their Shiva and Shloshim periods of mourning: Jeffrey Colin, brother of Ken Colin, June Mintz, godmother of Brian Arbor, Benjamin and Neg Arbor, cousins of Brian Arbor, Mark Grayson, brother of Paul Grayson. And although it's customary not to read their names in the list formally, I sadly announce the death of one of our members, Claudette Pfeffer, who passed away this afternoon. We're going to be observing a funeral for her sometime early next week, likely on Monday morning, though we haven't fully firmed it up because it was only right before services. And so look out for information about that being sent to the congregation. In addition, I'll invite anyone who is in their 1 year period of mourning to please put the names of those people on the list. And I want to extend one final condolence to Rita Grotti, who for the final week will be putting her mom's name in this list. And so may her memory be for a blessing as next week you observe her yard site after your full year of mourning. And may she always, her memory, live in your heart. And so, adding those names, we rise together, page 294. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah. V'hamad divrach chirutei v'yamlich malchutei. V'chayachon u'v'yom echon u'v'chayed d'chol Beit Yisrael. Ba'gala u'v'zman kariv v'imru amin. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam olamei amaya. Yiparach v'yishtabach v'yipa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudesha barechu. Leila min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechamata damiram bi'ama v'imru amin. Yehei shlama Rabbah min shemaya. V'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amin. Oseh shalom b'mromav. Hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amin. Please be seated. So before we move into our closing song, any final announcements, Ronnie, before I add a few of my own? So.
Got it. Tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., Josh Katz will be leading our Torah study. At the same time, we will also be having yoga, and Lisa Westreich will be leading that. And tomorrow evening, if you happen to be one of those that attends Havdalah, we will be doing Havdalah Plus, so we'll be playing games. And if you haven't been on there before, come join us. It's just fun and a little bit of tradition, and light some candles. Knowing we are in the month of Kislev now, in the darkest month, we need as much light to come forth. And by bringing that Havdalah candle together, it brings the bridge between Shabbat and next week for Shabbat, leading into the time when we bring the most light for Hanukkah. Shabbat Shalom.
So tomorrow morning as well, we want to wish a preemptive Mazel Tov to Lev and Shana. We can't wait to hear you chant Torah and to be called up for the very first time. Thank you again to Alana Bass, who led us in a beautiful rendition of Misha Berach. And look out for information about Hanukkah. We've basically made a different lighting each night. Some are virtual for those who don't feel comfortable being in person. Some are in person. Some are aimed towards specific grades in our religious school and our preschool, but some will be open just for the community to come by. And so we hope that you'll join us for at least one lighting and give a chance to be in community during Hanukkah, if not most of it. And in addition to that, a few other just really fun and important programs coming up. 2 weeks from tonight, we have a really impressive rabbi coming to speak to us. She's the chaplain at Yale, and her name is Isama Goldstein Stoll, and she's a Jew of color, and she's going to speak about the experience of Jews of color and how communities can be more open to Jews of color. We're excited that the next week, Brian Arbor is actually going to be speaking. I don't know if you realize it, but Brian was working the decision desk for Fox News, and so he's going to explain kind of like, what did behind the scenes look like, as he was calling states in the election. And so we're really excited to have him join us. And then our film festival is coming up in the week or so before the holiday break. And so we've got a lot of great programming happening for that. And the theme is racial justice, and we hope that you'll join us. And you can find all that information on our website. So with that, we're going to turn to page 321 as we join together in our closing song, Adon Olam. Adon Olam Asher Malach B'terem Kol Yitzir Nivra V'yet Nasa V'chaso Azai Melech Shemo שמו נקרא מאחרי ככלות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא והוא היה והוא הווה והוא יהיה בתפארה והוא יהיה בתפארה והוא אחד ליד שני להמשילו להאירה בלי ראשית בלי תכלית ולא העוז והמשרה ולא העוז והמשרה והוא אלי וחי גואלי בצור חמלי בצרה והוא ניסי ומנוס לי מנת כוסי ביום מקרא מנת כוסי ביום מקרא בידו אפקיד רוחי ותישן וירא בהים רוחי גביעתי אדוני לי ולא יירא Adonai li velo ira. So Shabbat Shalom, everybody. And we're going to allow everyone to mute or unmute themselves if they want. So you can wish everybody a Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shalom.